So we have Sudhir. Sudhir, you there? Okay, great.
Hey Ajay, good evening.
Hey, good evening. Good evening. Welcome, Sudhir. So yeah, we have a couple of more minutes, about 3 minutes more, I think, before we can start. Uh, yeah. I think format-wise, I think similar. Uh, yeah. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes, and then we can start at 6:15. Right?
Sure, sure.
If you were in the office, I would have said, "Do you want to have some coffee before we begin," or something like that, right?
No coffee, no caffeine these days.
No caffeine. Okay.
Just regular water, that's it.
All right. All right. That's great. Yeah, I think we're all getting used to this
Yeah,
remote
I mean, I have
kind.
set up my own small office at home,
Yeah, that's great.
chair, table, machine, and everything, desktop keyboard.
I did the same thing. I set everything up in one place. The problem is I get terrible internet in that one spot, so I have to keep moving to the dining
I'm
table.
using currently two internet just as a backup.
Oh, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been a great audience so far. They're full of questions. And what I'm going to do is, okay, actually, Amit has already done it. And for all the participants, first of all, warm welcome. We're going to start momentarily. In the meantime, if you want to start, asking questions that we can take at about the halfway mark, then there's a link in the Zoom group chat. It's a link to Slido. Please use that link to ask Sudhir any questions that you might have. um, and then promote your question that way. If people like it, then it comes to the top, right? And then we get to address those questions first, right? Yeah. One more thing is, these talks are going to be recorded, and it will be hosted on our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions after this talk, right, maybe later this day, or if you're watching, if you share with a friend and they have a question, please let them know that they can just ask questions on YouTube itself. And maybe a week from now, we'll try to get some time from Sudhir, and maybe he can come and answer those questions for you on YouTube itself, right? So that is one option. Okay. Yeah. So Amit has shared our YouTube channel link. So yeah, I invite you to subscribe, and then we can take it from there. Right? Anyway, I think it's time. So welcome, Sudhir, and welcome to this edition of Crio's Big Variable Series. We're going to talk today with Sudhir Miglani. He's a computer scientist at Adobe, and he's had past careers in Groupon as well as Paytm. Sudhir also has a very interesting sort of interview prep kind of thing going on of his own, actually. I forgot to ask him what tool he uses. It's probably a Slack workspace or something like that.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's a Slack workspace today.
It's just a Slack workspace, that's it.
Okay, it's a Slack workspace where he actually interacts with a lot of students and other people interested in data structures, algorithms, right? And he's passionate, very passionate about problem solving, data structures, algorithms. And today we're going to talk to him about cracking the coding and design interviews. So, Sudhir, welcome to Cryo and welcome to Big Variable Series.
Sure. Thanks, Ajay. Thanks to everyone who has joined, and thanks for taking our time. I hope everyone is not tired till now. We are going to have a great discussion, and thanks to the Crio team as well for having me here.
Sure,
So, yeah.
it's a
Uh,
pleasure. So we can start off, Sudhir, with, do you want to just talk about your journey? Actually, I think you have your own presentation. So I go ahead and stop sharing, and you can share your presentation, and we can begin with that, right?
sure. Just a sec.
Do you have permissions, or do I have to give you some permissions to? Okay, I think if I make you a co-host, then you should be able to project.
Yeah.
Another option is I can project.
I think I'm able to
Okay.
do this.
Yeah. Great. We see it.
Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so hello everyone. This is Sudhir Miglani, and I am currently working as a computer scientist at Adobe, and I have around 7 years of experience into the software domain. And so the agenda of this task is to talk more about the coding and design interviews, share my experience altogether, share my industrial experience about the interviews as well. And the agenda is we'll be talking more on these interview parts, and then we'll also have 20 minutes Q&A where we'll be picking up your questions to answer. We'll try to answer each and every question. Cool. Uh, about my background and what I do at Adobe. Uh, my professional background is so I passed out in 2013 uh, in computer science branch from IP University. I got placed at HCL from the campus with 200 other folks, but I didn't join there. I wanted to do something big. So I just appeared for Cool Campus, tried off-campus interviews. Luckily, I was one of the top three selected students out of 520 who applied for the off-campus interview for that particular event. I joined Compro Technologies. It was a very small company as a full stack developer. I started working there in Backbone and Java in the full stack domain. Uh, Post that, 1.5 years later, I joined Paytm as a front end developer, and I worked there using AngularJS. I worked on the login and sign up pages of Paytm. Post that, I joined Groupon India, also known as Nearby, uh, uh, in the same year as again a full stack guy. And there, so it was purely a startup culture, and I was the 15th tech member of the team joining there. And I worked on Java on the backend side, Node.js, front end. I used Angular 1 and a lot of other technologies. I also built some Chrome extensions working there. It was a great learning curve for me. Uh, Post that, I joined another startup called Grey Orange Robotics. Again, as a full stack guy, uh, the team was again very small when I joined there. I was the third member of the team. Set up the whole microservices architecture from scratch using Java and other technologies on the backend side, and also working on the React.js on the front end side. uh, yeah, that's been a bit about that experience. Uh, After that, I joined Adobe in 2018. It's been 2 years now, and it has been a great journey at Adobe. I joined as a computer scientist, and I have been working primarily as a full stack guy again. Sometimes working on the back end, sometimes on the front end. Doesn't really matter to me. Whatever I get, I just enjoy the work. Apart from this professional history, I do have some side gigs. I used to work as a freelance developer. I also launched some Android apps, also Alexa skills. I launched. Uh, I created an Node.js package. It was a pretty simple one though, JSON transformation package in Node.js, and I published it on npm. It has around 20K downloads. I am also mentoring pre-final and final year students whenever I get time. I have a small community on over Slack, and also started working on creating some technology courses wherever I feel there is a gap, and there are not much resources for that particular technology available online for students to learn. So that's about apart from the normal professional work that I do. uh, at Adobe. uh, I am currently working as I mentioned, as a full stack guy. And about the work that I have done at Adobe in past 2 years. So I had the privilege to work on three different products of Adobe. In Adobe Sign, it's into digital signatures, where I worked on redesigning the whole monolith architecture to a microservices. Most of you might already know about microservices, using the technologies Java and Spring, and optimize the overall running time and the cost as well. I also work on the front end side of Adobe Sign on a particular app where it is redesigned the whole architecture of the front end uh, into using TypeScript and just without any framework, and we were able to reduce the page load time to 400%. Post that, I also worked with Adobe Target and worked in the optimization of web page again, using by introducing a distributed cache Redis, again using the same tech stack, Java and Spring. Uh, After this, I have been associated with Campaign, Adobe Campaign for past 1 year, and there I have been working with designing the whole architecture of Adobe Campaign from scratch. And the tech stack that I am currently working in is GraphQL and Java, mostly the active stack, Spring Webflux to work on the concurrency part. So yeah, that's been a bit about what I have been doing at Adobe, and it's been a great learning for me as well, working on different areas and working on different products, just to understand how these things work internally and at a scale as well. Cool. So let's talk more on why we are here and why what we want to learn from this session. And we're talking more on the what are the rounds or typical rounds in an interview that you guys usually see. What are the expectations from each of the rounds?
Yeah, I think that's the hot topic, and
Yeah.
just to give you some context, Sudhir, we have people who are student listeners here today in the audience. We also have working professionals
Okay.
uh, in the 1 to 3 years, and a few of them even beyond 3 years of work experience.
Okay.
So I
That's
think it's very topical. I'll let you take control, and as the questions come in, if they're relevant, then I will interrupt with
sure.
any
Sure.
question that comes in.
You can stop
All right,
me anytime if
yeah,
you feel like there is a relevant question. Take
all
that.
right, yeah. So it's over to you.
Good. 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 So yeah, let's talk more on the interview rounds. That's the more important and most important thing if you want to go to your dream company, right? So there are a lot of interview rounds, and it's not necessarily that you will see each of these in all of the interviews. It totally depends on the company that you are applying and that you are giving. But I have tried to lay down each of the different categories. So on a very high level, you see there is the initial screening of your resume and the candidate as well. Then you have an online coding challenge and assignment sometimes in specific companies. Then you have a problem solving and DSA round where you are expected to read the code and solve the problem. Then you also have a high level design round, where you are expected to design things at a very high level architecture level. Uh, in the low level design, again, you will be talking about more on the intricacies of how you are structuring the particular microservice. What is the database schema that you are designing? What are the relationships between them? Uh, there is also rounds dedicated to your projects and past experience, depending on your experience, right? If you're a fresher, then it is more on, what are the projects that you have been doing, what are the major expertise that you have. And for the experienced folks, it's more about what you have done till now and what production experience that you have, and what is the expertise and focus areas in your experience. Then there is also a behavioral discussion, which people take it very lightly, but when is the one of the most important interview rounds. We'll be talking more about that later. And there is also an HR round in some of the companies where you typically have salary discussions and talking more about the company and the role. Right. Let's dive deeper into each of these. Uh, so first of all, the initial screening is it's kind of when you apply to a company or you get a call from a company, your resume is being seen or being shortlisted. Uh, the recruiter scans your resume and talks to you, connects you just to understand what is your experience and just to check initial profile fitment, whether you are fit for the current role that they are hiring for or not. Recruiter also check sometimes the communication skills of yours, and very honestly, it can be an elimination route, at least in Google. I gave I get a call from Google back 2 years back, and recruiter asked me technical questions like about merge sort and all these things. I was so amazed to see the recruiter asking technical questions, but it does happen, and it can be an elimination round, at least in Google. So yeah, that's a bit about the initial screening. Post that, if everything goes well, your resume gets shortlisted and the recruiter or hiring manager is happy with your profile. They share with you an online coding assignment challenge or a particular assignment. So this online coding challenge is conducted over any platform like HackerRank, HackerEarth, Codability. A lot of other platforms are there. It's typically a time-based challenge, typically spanning from 1 to 2 hours, and have 2 to 3 questions based on the difficulty levels, and they have a selection criteria on how much marks you score in that challenge. Some of the companies also have an assignment, at least mostly for the full stack guys or the front end developer roles. They expect you to create something, a web page, a basic web page kind of a thing, where they can understand your experience on the design level things, on the coding level things, right? Uh, so if there is an assignment, it can be an elimination or non-elimination round. Totally depends on the company. If they want to take it ahead and want to discuss more on what the assignment you have done, it's typically a non-elimination round. But again, it's very, very important round because it's the first step to your dream job. Next is the problem solving and the DS round. Again, it's a very, very important and the most important of all the rounds because students spend most of the time preparing for coding challenges, doing problem solving stuff. Uh, for the level, like for which level do you expect this round? It is for freshers, SD1, SD2, manager, architect, everyone. I'm telling you very frankly, everyone is expected to solve problems at any level, right? It is again one of the most important rounds. So let's talk more about this round. So it's not just about solving a particular problem, right? If you start doing some question on lead code or a hacker rank, right? You just solve the question there, uh, and you think that you can crack the same round in the interview. It's not like that. It's just not the question that you want to solve. A lot of other factors also come into picture. A lot of other things interviewer sees in you. So when you get a question in the interview, how you are approaching to a problem statement, are you able to understand the problem? Are you asking questions or not to clarify? Are you asking some test cases just to clarify whether your understanding is correct or not? These things are pretty important, right? uh, Interviewer wants to see what is your way of thinking. Are you approaching to a problem or not in the correct way or not? You're trying to solve it in the best optimized way directly, or you're explaining in a way that you want to solve the problem first and then I will optimize it later, right? How you're explaining the solution. It's not about just you see the question and you see, oh, I have already done it, let's start writing the code. You shouldn't follow that path, right? Even if you have seen the question, right? Interviewer is more interested in how you are approaching to a problem. It is directly related to how you will see the real problems later when you are working with this guy, right? So the way you are approaching to a problem, the way you are explaining it to anyone in the team later, right? That is one of the most important things. Then comes a part of the coding skills, right? When you are done with these things, you have a solution in mind, you explain a pseudocode to the guy. Then when you're starting writing the code, how good is your code? How readable is your code? Are you giving the variables name so clearly that the interviewer is able to understand? Are you writing the clean code or not? That is very important thing again. Then comes the debugging and testing skills. When you are done with the code, how are you able to debug the code? Suppose you write some test cases just to test the code, whether your code is perfect or not. How you are thinking which test case to run or not. Then if particular test case is not running, how are you debugging this code? Because these are pretty important things and pretty minute things though, but this leave a very big impact on the interviewer. So the even if you're not able to solve the problem in a very optimized manner, but you are able to convey these things and you are able to show that, okay, you know these things, you know how to debug, you know how to test, then the interviewer can fight for you in further rounds. You can at least focus on other rounds, right? So these are pretty important and minute things you should be focusing on, not just clearing the particular question, right? uh, Next we move on to the high level design round. It is more for the experienced folks, not for the freshers. At least 3+ years experience, but it totally depends on the company. If company wants to ask have the HLD round for 2 year experience as well, I mean that totally depends on the company. So HLD round is very open-ended round. By open-ended, I mean there is no right or wrong answer to this question, right? It is discussing how you are approaching to a problem and what is your thought process. A typical, questions asked in this HLD round is, you can see, design Netflix, design Instagram, design Uber. Obviously, you can't design Uber in 45 minutes, right? The expectation is not to design everything. It is to how you are thinking, how you are breaking the whole ecosystem into small things, and how are you explaining how even so. Apart from breaking into sub modules. So if you talk about microservice architecture, right? What all microservices you can think of at a very high level, right? And then how you are, do you know about these concepts or not, first of all, right? Then it comes, are you thinking about scaling the architecture or not? Are you thinking about caching or not? Are you thinking about database sharding or not? All these high level things, right? Interviewer is not expecting that this guy has done all these things in his experience. No, he's just want to see if there comes a scenario where you are expected to design something from scratch, which is expected to be $1 billion product, right? Will you be able to do something? Will you be able to design a product of that level, right? So he just want to see your knowledge around these things, whether you know sharding and all these things, whether you know what is a database locking, uh, what is a distributed cache, what is the in-memory cache, things like that, right? So you have to, uh, you have to explain all these concepts while designing the architecture, and you have to consider all these things while explaining Netflix or Uber, right? So this is the main intent of the interview, and it's again an open-ended. There is no right or wrong to the design that you have created. It's about the design that you have created. Are you able to explain it clearly? Is it communicable well enough? Are you using all the concepts or not? It's purely focused on these things, right? Next comes the low-level design part. Again, it is expected for at least for 1+ year experience, sometimes for freshers as well. It totally depends on the company again. It is again an open-ended. There is no right or wrong to the design that you are creating, or there is not a particular answer that the interviewer is expecting from you. It is totally up to you. If you create a design that is not the interviewer has ever seen in his life, but you are able to explain and prove that the design is good, then you are good to go, right? What the interviewer is more interested in is how you are designing the database schema, first of all. What are the entities that you can think of, right? How are you designing the low level design of all these things? How are you creating the classes? What is the relationship between these classes? Are you using inheritance or are you using composition? Are you using interfaces, abstract classes, or what? And where you're using all these things, right? So all the OOPS concepts that you have read, right, will be utilized here. And to see how extensible is your design, right? So you might see, typical problems, right? A parking lot problem. You just Google it, typical, what are the low-level design interview questions? You will find this in one of the top 10, right? And it's not like it's not being asked today as well. Even big companies ask the same question today. Do they don't know that this question is already leaked? No, they are not interested in that. What they are interested is in how. So even if you read it online, is your design really scalable? So you picked a parking lot problem and explained the whole design and created something, right, to the interviewer, right? The interview comes up with more questions, like something like, if you want to extend this parking lot to a multi-level parking with multiple floors, is your design extensible or not? Or you have to change everything, right? How to include a corporate level parking. So let's say Adobe has started sharing its parking with other companies, right? We have a common parking and a corporate level parking you need to maintain. Is your design extensible to handle all these things? And you just included cars in your design. Is your design scalable well enough to include more vehicle types? Let's say truck, hypothetically, right? We never know what is coming in future. We never know. So your design should be so scalable that it shouldn't change, right? The whole architecture should not change with few features coming in, right? So he's more interested in how you are scaling in, how far you can think of, right? So these are the pretty important things while designing the whole architecture of the low level design. Uh, Again, next comes the behavioral design. Again, people who don't know what is a behavioral round, just to give in brief idea. So I just picked this line from Google. A typical definition: should provide verifiable concrete evidence as to how a candidate has dealt with issues in the past, right? Okay, it's not even getting what it is saying, right? So it's totally about, so again, behavioral is again a open-ended question. There is no right or wrong to any situation or any question that the guy is asking. It's about to understand you further, how you are as a person, when you're working professionally in a company, how you behave to scenarios, situations, right? So this round is just to see whether you are a right fit for the company or not. So let's say you are a very cool guy. You don't really care much about the production level issues. Hypothetically, let's assume this scenario, right? So just to understand whenever there is a production level issue, how will you respond in that situation? That he is more interested in. How will you respond? So they follow this theory that how you behaved in the past will predict how you will behave in the future, right? If you have come up with a certain situation, right? Suppose you have a conflict with your team lead, right? If you face the same situation in my company, how you will behave, right? So just to understand that nobody wants to hire that guy who is, spoiling the culture. They want to hire someone who is with maintaining the good culture, right? So they don't want to take the risk, right? Apart from all the technical stuff, the culture is pretty important for, at least for the big companies. They really do care about the culture, right? That's why this round is very, very important, right? So you are expected a typical questions, right? Tell me more about the time you had a conflict with someone in the organization. Tell me a most recent challenging task, right? Again, it's just a reflection of your sheer personality, what you are. So you can't fake it, right? What you can do here is at least be prepared for this round. You can at least search, you can at least read about this, what do you expect in this round, so that you are mentally prepared that how you need to respond, which particular scenario you need to tell to the guy, right? So again, this is very important, and it is an elimination round. I'm telling you, I have got eliminated at this round even after clearing 5 technical rounds. So this is very important, guys. Just don't take it for granted. Yeah. Then some of the companies also have a separate HR round, just to understand the you as a person more, your experience. Also, some HR round discussions have around salary. What is your expectation? Negotiations and all these things. The salary structure that you explain about the company, the roles and responsibilities that you are hired for. Again, about the company policies and all these things you can also ask. So these things, all get discussed usually in this round. So yeah, that's a bit about all the interview rounds that I have tried to list down. I hope that is not too much information.
Yeah, I think that's it's a very good overview of the entire interview process, and what are some key focus areas in each particular round and why it is important. So I think Sudhir, quite frankly, you did a pretty incredible job laying out the entire interview process. And I think with a few minor tweaks here and there, I think this applies to nearly every other company out there. Right?
Yeah,
Most companies, including Crio, and I'm sure Adobe,
yeah,
use a similar interview process, right? I mean, if you want to continue, we can proceed with the preparation roadmap slides that you have. And then I have some more detailed questions that many users might be interested in asking. Right?
sure, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
All right.
Good,
Great.
good. So yeah, let's move forward. So we have talked about what are the interviews, what are the rounds. Now, how to crack these interviews, right? That is the main important question. You have
Right.
studied just the syllabus now. You have to, now do all the preparation and everything, right? For the preparation part, again, students used to ask me a lot of ample resources are there, where to start, what to do, what not to do. A lot of similar questions I receive on LinkedIn every single day. So again, what I have tried to lay down what I usually use for my personal preparations and what I see usually people following. For the coding part, coding rounds, a lot of good platforms are there. Lead Code, Geeks for Geeks, HackerRank, HackerEarth, CodeChef, and a lot of others are there. Uh, I don't have any personal recommendation for anything. You can pick any of these. I personally used HackerRank and LeetCode for my preparation, but that doesn't mean others are not good. Others are equally good. It's totally up to you. Stick to one, stick to two. Just don't stick to everyone. Uh, at least stick to one and try to prepare. More on that platform. I have seen people following, students at least following more CodeChef and LeetCode. And LeetCode, I personally recommend, it's a very great platform. Right. Uh, for system design, again, ample of resources are there. If you just Google it, you will find a lot of resources. You can even go through Medium blogs as well. But again, there is no structure to how to start, how to do the interview preparation. People start studying about system design and they get lost somewhere. Like where to complete it. I have started this somewhere and we are lost in a network, right? So I have tried to lay down few things. High Scalability is a very good website where you can start. Blog.gainlow, I personally recommend. It's a very good starter, though it doesn't contain very in-depth knowledge, but very good starter. Uh, there is a GitHub link by Donna Martin, who's a engineering manager at Facebook. He has aggregated all of the very awesome links and tutorials in at one place, and it's a very great step-by-step, collection of articles. And I personally recommend this one because it has a lot of information. If you go through this, it will clear all of your concepts. And even not for interviews, for us who are working in a day-to-day life, right? It is very important to understand all these concepts because we are designing systems in a professional life as well, right? So it helps a lot. So that's a very great resource. You can go through it. I also personally recommend, engineering blogs of big companies like LinkedIn, Netflix, Facebook, Twitter. They publish articles there on how they, derive or how they, publish this feature. Something like, Twitter, how Twitter introduced the concept of images in a tweet, right? So things like that, these are pretty great one that helps you, understand the high level things at a billion level scale, right? So these are pretty good resources if you want to go through. For low level design, again, a lot of things, like in the coding interviews, it's a great PDF book. You can refer, there is a chapter on that. Career Cup, again, I have found a lot of good questions there. Geeks for Geeks has also ample of questions about the low level design. You can read anywhere. Uh, Again, for the behavioral, there is no such specific that I can personally recommend, but I have seen few links on YouTube where the folks are explaining what a behavioral round is, what to do, what not to do, do's and don'ts for that. You can go through these and it will at least give you basic ideas about what a round is and how to prepare for that one, right? So yeah, that covers, the preparation roadmap. I know people have a lot of questions around this. We can surely pick these questions specifically to the preparation roadmap. This is just to give you a basic idea about the topic-wise distribution of what is usually being asked in a particular interview. It's not necessary that you will get the same distribution in your interview. It's just a data collected from the internet showing what are the usually asked questions. So if you can see, the maximum is 30% on arrays and strings, right? So you can prepare accordingly, right? You can prioritize these things. Geometry and math has the lowest one, right? So you can plan accordingly, right? It's not right. You will always have these questions in your interview. You can anytime have an interview where every interview have a dynamic programming question, right? So it totally depends on the interview, but just to give you a high level overview of how what is the data at the high level. Cool. We are reaching to the end of the the talking part from my side. Uh, just the practical insights. Again, it's just a personal experience that I have been sharing. And from my experience, of I personally have given more than 100 interviews in my life. To be very honest, and yes, I have given 100 more than 100.
100?
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's a
So
lot of
yeah, so
experience.
basically,
That's how I would look
I
at it.
yeah. So I'm not. So I'm from a tier 3 college, and I usually didn't get the call for big companies initially. So I just keep on applying to any other company, and at a moment I used to apply to startups. Even if I don't get selected, I just think, oh, it is a learning experience for me. I'll get to interact with the co-founders. It will be a learning even if I interact with these guys, even if I get rejected, right? So I have given a lot of interviews, and I had the privilege to take interviews as well. Throughout my experience, my professional journey, I have been in the interview panel as well, and taken a lot of interviews that I don't even have the count right now. Um so this is my personal do's and don'ts. It's not you can find on Google. Or it's just pure personal, experience that I'm sharing. What I usually observe during the interviews. So what I personally recommend to students is what to do in an interview. Always show confidence. Don't be hesitant. You have nothing. Obviously, you have a lot of things to lose. Not denying that part, but always be confident enough, right? Ask questions about the problem, right? Even if you see a problem that you have already done on lead code, right? I know people get too excited. Oh, I have already done this. I will clear this now. You should always ask and clarify. There might be a scenario where there is a catch in the problem statement, right? Don't jump the gun. You might lose points where you can have scored 100 out of 100 there, right? So I have seen a lot of students doing this. They see a problem, easy question. Okay, I know this. They started writing the code. Don't do that. The interviewer is not interested in whether you have already seen this question or not. He's more interested in how you are approaching to a problem, right? Always talk through the problem when you are doing, right? When you are writing code, you are explaining your pseudocode. This think about the same way when if I am the interviewer and I am hiring you, right? You are explaining me a solution to a particular real world challenging problem. If you're not able to explain it, how will I explain it to my higher management, to the leaders, right? I won't be able to explain it, right? So that is equally important on how you are able to communicate, right? Also, one of the very important questions, whenever they ask at the end of the interview, do you have any questions about the company or anything? Don't just skip it. It is a chance for you to ask about the company, right? People usually say, I don't have any questions. How can you not have questions? You should always have questions regarding. So this is a company where you will be working. You will be spending more of the time as compared to what you spend at home, right? You will be spending more of the time with the folks there, at least 10 to 10, 12 hours per day. Talk. If you have no question about technology, ask about the culture. What is the culture? What is the day-to-day life at that company, right? So that the interviewer also feels that, okay, this guy is more interested in joining, right? You also get some extra points for that, man. So just think about it and ask as much as you can. And every interviewer who's taking your interview will have a different story to tell, right? So you will get as many experiences shared by different folks, right? So keep it small if you want. Just keep it for 5 minutes if you want, but do ask, right? Uh, this is a pretty small thing for do's. Obviously, there are a lot of other things you can think about. For the don'ts, again, as I mentioned, don't panic. If you see a dynamic programming question and you have not done dynamic programming in your life, that is okay. That is okay. Don't panic. At least try to solve the problem using recursion only, right? It's a typical, in a layman, in a very typical solution only will work. That is okay if you're able to solve it, not so optimized one, right? You have other interview rounds as well. You can where you can score more. Don't just screw this round, right? Even if you see a very difficult one, right? Second, again, as I mentioned, don't jump the gun even if you know the problem. Just keep it easy and simple and try to do step by step things and explain in a more clear way as compared to just telling the solution in a single go, right? And one of the very important one last points, don't be arrogant. Guys, very honestly, even if you are one of the top coders in CodeChef or any platform, if you are being arrogant, nobody wants to work with you. uh, I personally, if you ask me, if I want to choose between two folks who are one of the very good competitive coder and who is okayish one, but he's very arrogant one, I personally would not want to work with him because I have to spend most of the time with this guy, right? So please don't be arrogant, be humble, and this is the chance where you will be landing your dream job, right? Don't take it for granted. Yeah, that's it about the talks from my side.
That
I
is
hope you
great.
guys are not bored.
No, not at all. I think Sudhir, I think you're on point. I think it was, very, very good and practical advice about how to approach, interviews. I have a few questions that I wrote down that I thought
Sure,
we can talk about here, right? Um, so, if you don't mind, can you stop sharing your screen? That way
sure.
we can see you more clearly, right? Okay, that is great. Let me get rid of this and the participants. Okay, this is great. Okay, now at least we know who's talking. So, Sudhir, one of the most common questions we get from users, right? How much time should you devote to prepare for tech interviews? How long does it take? It sounds great. You listed a list of resources and said, okay, there's lead code, there's the system design blogs you talked about, and the low level design. It's a great set of resources. How much time?
So, see, totally depends on the guy. So, if you're a fresher, you have a lot of time. You can even spend the whole day preparing for interviews, right? You might also want to dedicate some time for the projects that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but at least prepare a plan, even if it is like a 4 to 5 hours per day, right? If you want to follow that pattern, just prepare a plan, dedicate that particular time. Maybe some folks want to spend time over the night, right? So just prepare a basic plan, even if it is a 3 hour per day, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
stick to that plan and be punctual for that, right? Prepare a basic roadmap of, so again, for the next question you might be asking, I mean, people have, like, how do I prepare for the ample of resources I have? How do I proceed with that, right?
Right.
Don't just start, go to lead code and do random questions. I would not recommend that. Just do topic wise things, right? Let's say you start working on, let's say, arrays, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today I have started working with arrays and dedicate a particular timeline for that as well. Like, say, hypothetically 15 to 20 days I'll be working on arrays. Start with the easy one, then go to medium one, then go to hard, right? So when you're done with the arrays, then move to linked list, then move to another data structure, right? Also, if you want to start also working with a high level design or low level design as well, you can dedicate 1 hour per day for that as well. Or maybe you can also choose to, first focus on 3 months on the problem solving, and then you can move to the low level design part.
Right.
uh, Again, that again follow the same pattern. Start with a low level design, study the basics first. I would not recommend to start jumping the code and started, okay, I'm not able to solve questions, I am uh, feeling demotivated. Obviously you will feel demotivated. You need to understand the basic concepts first,
Right.
and jump the gun again. It takes time. Obviously the people who are top coders, they didn't become the top coder in a single day. It
Right.
takes time. It takes 6 months, sometimes it takes years to reach there, right? So you have to dedicate time, prepare the plan, and go with the plan, right?
Right. So, any sort of advice you have on what it takes to create an effective plan? And I really like one thing that you spoke about, where you said, uh, spend 3 months practicing some of these data structures. Even the basic data structures. You're looking at arrays, linked lists, stacks and queues, basic recursion, maybe even graphs and trees. Even there, I think it does take time, and there's no quick fix,
Yeah,
right? So when we are creating a plan, of course, it has to be a realistic plan. Otherwise, you get very demotivated, and you think in 2 days I'll be done with arrays. It's not going to happen,
yeah,
right? So, do you want to touch a little bit upon that
sure.
planning part? How to create this effective plan, and what are the key aspects that you need to see in a plan?
Sure. So again, uh, if you start with preparation, right, you can't really focus on creating a 6 months plan because that doesn't really work, right? Uh, So if you have an upcoming interview, let's say, right, at least for the freshers or experienced folks, if you have an interview coming in a month or so, so prepare your plan accordingly. Instead of just focusing on arrays and strings only for the whole month, you can divide that dedicatedly, like 4 to 5 days for single data structure and preparing accordingly, and
Mhm.
not doing hard questions for each of the topics. You can at least focus on easy and medium one, right? So that you have a higher chance of getting selected, right?
Okay.
So apart from this, I personally, I personally don't have that much ready plan with me in my mind right now.
Sure. Sure.
Uh, what I usually start doing is, just keep the track of my progress as well. What I am, where I am, and whenever I am not able to solve a particular question, I basically bookmark it and place it somewhere. That whenever I go through these advanced concepts, I'll revisit these questions, right? And similar for the other things as well, right? For the low level design part as well,
Right.
there is no, so for these questions you can still verify and run your code somewhere. For low level design, there is no place you can verify whether your design is correct or not, right?
Sure.
What you can do is study the concepts, write your own design, then go to Google and see what people are writing, right? For particular problem, how people are designing, is it matching with yours or they have a different design altogether?
Mhm.
Try getting it reviewed with experienced folks, with the folks who are already working, right? They can give you more clarity where you can improve, where which particular data structure will best fit, which is the best ideal, relationship fits between these designs, right? So that's how that might help you in preparation part as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's always tough to create that plan, and 4 weeks to an interview is very different from uh, I'm going to start interviewing in 6 months. What do I prepare? How do I structure my preparation? So it depends on your individual status, where you are, and what kind of preparation you're looking for, and then suitably you can design plans accordingly. I will put in a shameless plug here. The Cryo does have some of these programs, and we welcome you to go ahead and explore some of these programs as well. Right. So, um, while solving these data structures and algorithms questions in interviews, right? Uh, how important is it to focus on the approach? And you already talked about speaking through how you're thinking and how you're trying to approach the problem, and that way the interviewer also understands why you're making some choices. Um, so I think a lot of engineers, and while they're interviewing, they kind of forget this. They feel like, okay, they're in this mode when they have to just solve everything, and they're just typing away these things and don't really communicate enough. um, so do you want to touch a little bit upon the approach that you use that is very effective in interview settings?
So yeah, as I already talked about this, so why I mean interviews focus too much on this part, I'll tell you. So let's say you are being asked a question and you have a solution in mind, and you just jump the gun and started writing the solution. Maybe there is a better solution that exists, or maybe you are doing it wrong, right? Interviewer doesn't even get the chance to correct you, right? So that is one of the most important things. Secondly, if you start writing the code, maybe we never know what the interviewer is thinking. Maybe he's thinking that you have already done this question. Maybe I should have asked a different question to judge you better, right? And secondly, the communication part again, how you are approaching the problem, which data structure you are choosing and why. It's not like you interviewer shouldn't think that you have memorized the solution, right, from somewhere. You know the problem, you understood the problem clearly. Why are you choosing this data structure? Are you choosing array? You're choosing a set or a map, right? And why are you choosing it? Why can't we choose another one? So if you are choosing a not so fit data structure for this solution, maybe interviewer can cross check or maybe give you hints that okay, that this particular data structure might help you more, or it might help you with the complexity part of it as well, right?
Right.
You might be focusing too much on the time complexity, where the interviewer is also thinking on the space complexity as well, right?
Right.
If you don't discuss these things now, then the maximum time about the problem solution, you will get that part is wasted, right?
Right.
It takes just 5 to 10 minutes to discuss all these things. If you have a clarity,
Mhm.
if you have a solution in mind and a clarity, it takes hardly 5 to 10 minutes to write the code. I personally feel that, right?
Right.
So that's why I personally see when I take an interview that how the guy is approaching to a problem. I
Mhm.
don't have a typical checklist that I follow. Okay, he have done this. No, not really. But at
Right.
least whether he is clarity of the concepts or not, and which data structure he is choosing, whether he knows that this data structure does what and what are the pros and cons of this data structure.
Are there some special, props, so sort of preference given to selecting more complicated data structures, or is it fine to just, find a good, elegant solution in an interview setting?
So, I mean, it totally depends on the question again. But I would personally expect anyone to come up with a simple or basic solution as well, at least the basic one. Don't don't jump the gun and use try data structure at the first go, right? If I'm expecting you to prefix matching on any particular problem statement, right? People just go and jump, use they try and start writing code. That is not the scalable model or very good approach.
Mhm.
Start with a small one, right? Just tell, okay, I'll start with using hash map and explain why is hash map not the best fit here. Why are you losing? What are you losing using a hash map? If the interviewer is interested in that part, then you can
Right.
proceed to try. If he is okay with hash map, if he's okay with the space one, that is, then you can proceed with the hash map as well, right?
Mhm.
So that again, we don't know what the interviewer is expecting from you. You just need to discuss and convey your thoughts, and
Right.
you also need to discuss that you know all these pros and cons. That you know that try also exists, and there is pros and cons for each other. There is a time and space trade off between these, right? So if you don't discuss it, again, that you might lose points there.
Right. I'll just have another one or two questions, and then we can go to the user submitted questions. Right. Um, what about projects and past experience? How important are having good projects on a resume? And when you're talking about projects, what kind of projects typically stand out?
So yeah, it totally differs for freshers and experienced folks. For experienced folks, it's majorly what the work you have done in your previous companies, uh, right? And for freshers, it's about whatever they have done, maybe in college as a part of major or minor projects, or as a side gigs, right? So it totally depends on the role that you are applying for. If you are a backend guy, you're. I mean, I uh, personally don't really care about if you have done to-do projects. If you are reflecting that a to-do app, that might not be a good reflection on your profile. But have something as simple as a basic e-commerce app or anything, an app that can show that you know about these concepts, about what is the API, what is the REST endpoint, how you are designing a database, and all these things again, and showcasing that on anything, something like a GitHub, or even you have deployed it somewhere, or any free Heroku like thing, right?
Mhm.
So if you have done these things, that leaves a good impression on the interviewer that
Right.
okay, that this guy knows about these things, and it won't take much time that this guy to get onboarded to our platform. And for the experienced folks, it's more about what he has been doing throughout his experience. Uh,
Right.
whether the projects are too complex or whether he has done very simple projects and he has not done very extensive, database level projects or concurrency level projects. So it totally depends on that. But again, uh, don't I don't really see when people showcase 10 projects and most of them are just to do apps, so it doesn't give you a good reflection of projects.
So, Sudhir, I think now is a good time to cut to all the questions that users have been submitting. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. We'll take them popular questions first, and then if we have time, we can switch to recent mode.
Sure.
We have about 15 minutes for questions, so that's plenty, right? So top question is it necessary to do competitive programming to get a good grasp on algos and data structures, especially for product-based companies, right? Or should the focus be on development and building projects and coming up with a good portfolio of projects as well, or do you think it's somewhere in between?
Very good question.
Right.
So these are equally important. Again, totally depends on the experience level. At least for the freshers, I would give more weightage to the algo and DS part, but you can't really skip on the projects as well, because a lot of folks apply to a particular company. How your profile or how your resume stands out from the crowd, it totally depends on the projects as well, right? And not really the competitive programming. If you focus on algo DS part as well, that should be good with you, right? You should be able to solve questions in an interview, right? It's a little bit different than the competitive programming, where you have to write the code, running code, and all these things in a time-based manner, and you compete against 1,000 folks. The algo and DS part, where you are solving a problem, focusing more on data structures that you're using, whether you are able to cover the edge cases and all these things, these are more important than the complete programming. So you focus more on that things first, and obviously projects are pretty important. Try to focus and do projects as much as you can. That's a reflection of how much you know about these technologies.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we tell many of our student learners also is, if you're in your second year, early third year engineering, that's when you can actually go explore projects, build a few good things, because the data structures focus is going to take you about 6 months. So if you can get some good projects that you have built on your own, put it on your resume, and then by the end of third year or early fourth year all these internship interviews have started, right? So then you can focus about spend a good 6 months focusing on data structures and algorithms. That way you get to have the best of both worlds. Yeah. And same thing for working professionals if you're trying to make a career transition at this point. And if you feel like your present work experience is not giving you that edge on the resume, then working on some projects, and not the number, it's how deep you can go in a particular project, and basically understand everything that you have done. It's not like you have to know everything, but what you have done, you know extremely well. So that's some of the things that we try to tell some of our users as well.
Rightly said.
Some questions around, language choices and tech stacks, functional programming languages like Haskell, AI and ML, Java, Python. Like what is hot? Like do you want to touch upon, how to prepare for these things, and is domain specific preparation required, or any general skills? Yeah.
So for the DS part, I don't have any personal preference, and the same thing I usually tell the students that you can pick any of the language, even Golang you can also pick, right? Doesn't really matter, because the main intent is to solve the problem for the DSA part, right? Uh, from the career point of view, if you want to pick a particular, so if you're doing some projects, right, you have to pick a particular technology. If you're doing a backend project, you can pick Java, Node.js, Python as well. Totally up to you. You know, it never happens that a particular technology is more in demand and then there is not. There are always companies hiring for particular technologies. Obviously, Java has more companies working on Java, but recently startups are focusing more on Node.js. So again, full stack guys focus on Node.js to hire, right? Just a second. Yeah, sorry. So so you can pick any of the technology. That doesn't really matter. Even Python is also good. I have seen a lot of awesome folks in my network doing very good in Python Django. Totally depends on you. But again, whatever you are picking, just make sure that you are doing good projects in that particular technology that you can showcase that I know this technology and this is the proof.
What about subjects like operating systems and computer networks, or even things like DBMS? How important are knowing these things, and do they typically get evaluated in an interview setting?
They are important. They are pretty important. You can't really skip that because so it's just not about clearing the coding interviews, right? You might be asked questions on what is a deadlock, what is the concurrency pattern, right? On what are the cores in a particular CPU, right? Things like that. Networking part as well. What is the TCP UDP? Obviously, you can't really expect those many questions in a typical interview, but these can be asked. So better be prepared for these questions. And obviously, this will not harm you. This will actually help you even if you get selected someday, right? So it will help you when you're working there. When you know what is a concurrency, what is a parallelism, all these things will eventually help you. So for a safe side, I would recommend to also spend some time, not as much as on the DSA part, but at least dedicate some time to prepare on these things.
There's some questions around, should we take up jobs in mass recruiter companies like Infosys and TCS, or is it better to prepare for jobs in other companies or startups? And you've already shared your experience. Does it still hold today? What would you do today? And what's your advice for
So
people?
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's totally up to you. It's not like people are not happy at companies like Infosys, and I won't say it's these are bad companies. They're pretty good companies. Uh, it totally depends up to you. I personally want to do big in my life, right? I always have aspirations. I might have aspiration today to join something like Netflix or Facebook, right? uh, I always have aspirations to grow myself, right? I had an offer from HCL. Not saying that HCL is a bad company; it's a very good company. I just don't wanted to join a service-based company. I wanted to join a product-based company because I think I had the capability to do something big, right? So it's totally up to you. If you are happy at this job, that is up to you. If you are not happy and you want to do something big, just prepare. There are folks who just leave the job and prepare. There are folks who continue the job and prepare.
Right.
I used to prepare while commuting in the metro as well because I used to commute like 2 hours one side while working. So I mean, everyone has its their own journey. It's totally up to you how passionate or how badly you want to get into your dream company.
Right. Um there's a few questions on things like salary negotiations and how to approach it. Any tips that you have on?
Okay. So it totally again, if your interview went well, you can fight for it, right? Totally. First of all, do your homework. Check what is the market rate and what is the company usually gives at this level and all these things. Do your homework, and if you're sure that your interview went well, you can fight for it. And obviously, there are situations where you have competing offer. You can ask for a better one. There are a lot of other things as well. Again, it's totally up to you. If you think that you deserve more, you can ask for it. You should ask for it. There is nothing to lose. You should ask for it. If you don't get the one, then settle on the one that you're getting.
There's one question by a third year student, and he says he doesn't have any projects on the resume, but is comfortable with C and data structures. Is it a good idea to work on a few projects and actually, get some experience there? And will this affect? And not doing it, will it affect chances of placements?
Sure. I personally prefer and ask students to have some projects, dedicate time. Two reasons why. First of all, okay, there might be scenarios where in your particular interview, nobody will ask about the projects and you might get placed in some big MNCs like Adobe or Amazon or Google, right? There might be scenarios. But just think about, how your resume gets shortlisted when you're applying to a company. There are tons of resumes that gets received to a particular job, right? How your resume stands out. They don't know that you are good in C and data structures, right? That's just you just write a line. You are at this much leaderboard in a hacker rank or code chef, right? But again, there are a lot of other folks might be there. But if you have some projects to showcase, this might give you an upper edge to the at least the shortlisting part. And at least for startups, these are pretty important because they want someone who have already hands-on all doing these things. They can't really spend so much on your trainings as compared to big MNCs. They can't spend. They just want folks who are good in problem solving. And even if you're not good with the projects, they can still hire you and spend more on your trainings. Startups can't really spend that much, right? So if they get someone who has done good works in projects, obviously they will prefer that guy so that they don't have to teach this guy and he can start working from day one. So be prepared for these things, and your profile should be good for all of these scenarios. So I personally recommend to have some projects, and it's a good reflection of your knowledge.
All right, Sudhir. So I think we're officially out of time. There's so many more questions, but then, folks, that's all the time we have today to interact with Sudhir. Uh, you know, we will post a recording of this on our YouTube channel, and then you can go ahead and ask questions on YouTube itself. Post them as comments, and then we'll see. We'll try to get Sudhir maybe a few days from now to respond to some of your questions there. Sudhir, do you have any parting advice, parting thoughts that you want to share with the audience today?
Yeah, just one thing, guys. I personally feel that if I can crack big companies, so anybody can. I didn't even, started data structures in college as well. Didn't even knew that we have to prepare these things. I started working on this when I passed out from the college, right? I started preparing data structures from that level. So if I can crack these big companies, I had offers from, Amazon, from Grab, from Booking.com, from Amsterdam. I give interviews for companies like Google, Facebook. So if I can crack these companies, now anyone can. Just don't lose hope. Someone might crack it in a single go. Someone might be able to crack it in a couple of years, right? So just prepare, and if you have the passion, you can do it. That's it.
Yeah.
And thanks everyone who joined for listening to me. I know it might be difficult for you.
Right. I mean, thanks a lot, Sudhir. So, a couple of things that everybody is interested in. They want to know how to join that Slack workspace that you're running. So, if you can share details of that in the Zoom chat window, and
Sure.
we'll also email it to you to all of the registrants, right? So, so Sudhir will share the Slack
Sure.
workspace. Feel
Sure.
free to join it. I think it's a pretty tight knit community. Passionate about problem solving, data structures, and interview preparation. I think it will be a great, especially having a great peer group around you, right?
Yes.
And a plug for us as well. Crio also does host some of these learning programs. Take a look at our website for all the different, like if you're looking for adding projects or looking at data structures and algorithms, we do have some tracks as well. So yeah, if you feel like considering us, take a look at what we offer as well. Thanks a lot, Sudhir. It was a pleasure having you, and hope to have more conversations with you in the future.